said he was qualified, so he whooped his ass, while he was in there. Now, the other stuff that happened, it went down the way it did, man.
I would like to wish you all the Brits to go fuck yourself.
Yes, guys, welcome back to Grey Talks Wrestling. Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to another retro review. It's time to talk about SummerSlam 1990. It's time to talk about Earthquake versus Hogan. Rick Rude in a cage with the Ultimate Warrior, Texas Tornado and Mr. Perfect. Let's get down to it because it kicks off with Power and Glory versus the Rockers. Power and Glory, for me, decent team, underrated. Paul Roma and Hercules Hernandez had a decent look. I like Slick with them. Maybe could have got a push, couldn't they, really? At least challenge for the titles at some point, but they never really got that far. But a decent team, in my opinion. The Rockers, again, another team that should have got a title shot here. This was a decent match, told a good story. I like what they did with Shawn Michaels, taking him out with the knee injury. Had to be out for a while. He had surgery on the knee, I do believe, around that sort of time. Marty Jannetty had to carry the match himself in basically a handicap match that lasted about all of 6 minutes, with Power and Glory picking up the win. Big win for them at the SummerSlam 1990. And you were thinking maybe they'll go on to big things here. They looked pretty strong. They looked pretty decent. I loved the finisher. Off the top rope suplex followed by a splash. You see people emulating even to today. Intercontinental Championship was on the line, and this, like I said, SummerSlam, it was always a time where you had great matches, and the Intercontinental Championship featured so much, and it changed hands so many times at SummerSlam, and it did again here. Mr. Perfect was the champion now after the Warrior had to relinquish the title. Perfect wins it, and he's up against a new wrestler pretty much in the WWF at that time, in the Texas Tornado, or as many people do remember him, Kerry Von Erich. What a legend, absolute legend, and what a match this was. Yeah, it only lasted about 5 minutes, but what they did was phenomenal, and what a pop they get for the Texas Tornado when he defeats Mr. Perfect. No one saw it coming. 1, 2, 3, beats Perfect, hits it, gets the Iron Claw, hits that spinning Texas Tornado punch right on the jaw, knocks Mr. Perfect out, gets the pin. Bobby Heenan's losing his shit. So is Mr. Perfect. They sell it brilliantly, especially when they get backstage. Fantastic stuff right there. Just a legendary moment in the WWF and the Intercontinental Championship. One of the best moments for that title. And they always happen at SummerSlam. Always seems to happen. Title changing hands. The Intercontinental Championship features always highly at SummerSlam. Without a doubt. This is just another one, and there's more to come. They probably did the right thing with Sherry versus Sapphire and not actually having the match. That was probably the best decision they could ever have done. I'm glad whoever came up with that idea. Thank fuck for that, because no one really wanted to see Sapphire in a fucking match. Yeah, Sherry, yeah, okay, but there's only so much she can do. She was a legend, and she was very, very good in the ring, don't get me wrong, but who can work with Sapphire? Look, we saw what happened at WrestleMania. We don't need to see a singles match. This was probably the best option they could have gone with. Her not turning up for the match. Sherry winning by countout. The Warlord now on his own singles role after Power and Glory pretty much were done. Was okay, decent monster. Got a decent win here against Tito Santana in a short match. Warlord was okay, could do what he could do. He was what he was, really. Big monster that had a very limited move set. But yeah, was believable. Big guy, hard hitting. They tried to get him over, and it worked in a part, I suppose. This was an okay match, nothing special. The Hart Foundation versus Demolition should have been 10 times better than what it was. And for me, it was because they tried to fuck around with Demolition by bringing in Crush, and that just ruined the whole thing for Demolition, in my opinion. Why they did that, I'll never know. Why they stuck with it, I'll never know. It just didn't make sense, and it didn't work at all. The match itself was pretty good. 2 out of 3 falls was enjoyable. We see LOD coming into the WWF now, costing Demolition the match, and you're thinking after this there's going to be some sort of feud between Demolition and LOD, but that never really comes to fruition. We never actually see that. This is pretty much the end of Demolition, which is quite sad actually. A great tag team, one of the best in the 80s, and the way they go out is pretty sad, to be honest with you. They go out with a whimper rather than anything like you'd think they would. Jake Roberts against Bad News Brown, with Big Boss Man as special guest referee. Bad News gets himself DQ'd, of course he does. In comes the Snake. Boss Man not happy with Bad News, and you're thinking they're going to go with that sort of feud there. This was decent enough, I suppose. I don't know why you needed Boss Man as the referee. That really didn't work. Not one of the better matches. Speaking about not one of the better matches, and not really worth talking about, and a tag team not worth really talking about. Do you remember when Nikolai Volkov and Jim Duggan were a team? Oh, that was brutal. Especially their promos. Jesus. Against the Orient Express. Don't get me wrong, Orient Express were pretty decent. They're a decent team if you actually watch some of their matches, but this was brutal, and they had to put over Duggan and Volkov. Enough said about that. Less said about it, the better, really. Savage versus Dusty Rhodes could have been better, should have been better. It was a 2-minute match. Really? That's all you're going to give Savage and Rhodes? That could have been the match of the night. They could have stole the show. They were telling a story, and it just got ruined, really, with the whole Sapphire deal. She completely ruined Dusty Rhodes, and it was a complete joke the way they treated him in this company. Let's have it right. He was treated as a joke. They try and gloss over it in all these documentaries and everything they say about Dusty Rhodes nowadays, but when he was in the WWF, they could treated him like a joke. This is Exhibit A right here. A 2-minute match with Randy Savage. Are you having a fucking laugh? What a joke that was. Absolute farcical. Hogan versus Earthquake somehow gets 13 minutes though. You serious? This was brutal. Absolute brutal match. You knew what was going to happen. Earthquake sits on Hogan a couple of times. Hogan doesn't sell it at all. Gets up, hulks up, beats Earthquake. 1, 2, 3. The monster's done now. Forget about him. He's over. Hogan wins again. Ultimate Warrior and Rick Rude in a steel cage. Thanks to Rick Rude, this match was actually pretty decent. Somehow, some way, he is able to get something half decent out of the Ultimate Warrior. And it's probably like the last we're really going to see of Rick Rude in the WWF. He has 1 title shot and that's about it. Deserved a lot more in my opinion. Could have even had a heel run as a champion, but you know back then days Vince McMahon didn't want a heel champion. He wanted that baby face that went up against all the monsters and defeated them, and that's not Rick Rude. He had that in the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan, and he was loving life. Anyway, SummerSlam 1990 had some decent matches, don't get me wrong, but overall, like the things they did and the outcomes of matches, it wasn't the greatest of SummerSlams. Let's have it right. Not the greatest of shows in 1990 either. But there's some memorable moments that do stand out that still, for nostalgia reasons, make this an enjoyable show. Don't get me wrong. Definitely one worth going back and watching. Anyway, let me know what you think about SummerSlam 1990 down below. And let me know what you thought. I thought about it as well. I want to know your feelings and thoughts always. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Stay safe. Stay lucky. And I'll see you next time.